Once upon a time, in a quaint little town, there lived an elderly woman named Margaret. She had spent her entire life in the same old house, surrounded by memories and cherished possessions. However, her twilight years were marred by the relentless grip of dementia. Margaret's family, burdened with the responsibility of her care, decided to hire a live-in nurse to provide round-the-clock assistance. The nurse, Emily, was a compassionate and dedicated young woman who genuinely cared for Margaret's well-being. As the days turned into months, Emily noticed peculiar occurrences within the house. Objects would inexplicably move from their usual places, and eerie whispers echoed through the halls when she was alone with Margaret. She tried to dismiss them as figments of her imagination, chalking it up to the stress of the job. One moonlit night, while Emily was tending to Margaret, she heard an unsettling creaking sound emanating from the attic. Curiosity mingled with a sense of foreboding, compelling her to investigate. Leaving Margaret momentarily, Emily ascended the stairs, her heart pounding in her chest. As she cautiously pushed open the attic door, a gust of icy wind rushed past her, causing a shiver to run down her spine. The flickering light bulb revealed a disheveled room filled with forgotten trinkets and dusty old furniture. Among the clutter, she noticed an old photograph, its edges frayed with time. The photograph depicted a much younger Margaret surrounded by a group of people Emily didn't recognize. Their faces seemed distorted, their eyes filled with an otherworldly darkness. A chill ran down her spine as she realized that the people in the photograph bore a striking resemblance to the whispers she had heard in the house. A sudden noise from downstairs snapped Emily out of her trance. She hurriedly returned to Margaret's room, only to find her missing. Panic consumed her as she searched every nook and cranny, calling out Margaret's name in desperation. Finally, she heard a faint voice calling out from the attic. Racing back up the stairs, Emily found Margaret standing in the center of the room, staring blankly at the photograph. Her eyes, once filled with confusion, now held a sinister glint. Margaret turned to face Emily, her voice dripping with malice. "You shouldn't have seen that," she hissed, her face contorting into an unnerving grin. Emily's blood ran cold as she realized that the house was not haunted by the spirits of the dead, but by the malevolent presence that had taken hold of Margaret's fragile mind. As the night wore on, Margaret's dementia seemed to fade, replaced by a sinister lucidity. She moved with an unnatural speed and strength, defying her frail form. Emily's every attempt to escape was thwarted by the dementia-stricken woman who seemed to possess an otherworldly knowledge of the house's layout. Terrified and cornered, Emily found herself trapped in the attic with Margaret closing in on her. The room seemed to pulsate with a dark energy, the walls whispering ancient secrets. In a final act of desperation, Emily grabbed hold of a nearby antique mirror and shattered it against the floor. As the glass shattered, an ethereal light engulfed the room, banishing the darkness that had consumed Margaret's mind. Confusion and fear replaced the malevolence in her eyes as she crumpled to the floor, her body weakened by the supernatural force that had possessed her. The following morning, Margaret awoke in her bed, her memories of the previous night fragmented and clouded. Emily, shaken but alive, decided to leave her job, unable to erase the nightmarish encounter from her mind. From that day forward, the house stood as a chilling reminder of the horrors that unfolded within its walls. Margaret's dementia continued to progress, but the malevolent presence seemed to have been vanquished, trapped within the shards of the shattered mirror, a haunting testament to a night of terror that would forever haunt their memories. It was my first day at the new job, and I couldn't contain my excitement and nervousness. The office building had an eerie ambiance, with its dimly lit hallways and creaky floors. As I entered, the receptionist greeted me with a forced smile and handed me my security access card. I settled into my cubicle and started my work. But as the day progressed, I couldn't shake off the feeling of being watched. Every now and then, I would catch glimpses of shadowy figures moving in the corners of my vision, I dismissed it as my imagination playing tricks on me, chalking it up to first-day jitters. As the clock struck midnight, I was the only one left in the office. I decided to wrap up and head home. However, just as I gathered my belongings, I heard a faint whisper coming from the supply closet. My curiosity got the better of me, and I cautiously approached the closet door. As I opened it, a gust of cold air hit my face, and the room was plunged into darkness. I fumbled for the light switch, but it seemed to be malfunctioning. Suddenly, a pair of glowing red eyes appeared in the darkness, fixated on me. I felt a chill run down my spine as the whispering grew louder, echoing through the room. Terrified, I stumbled backward, only to find the door had vanished. Panic set in as I realized I was trapped. The whispering turned into sinister laughter, and the shadows in the room began to take shape, forming grotesque figures that closed in on me. I closed my eyes, praying for it to be a nightmare. But when I opened them, I was standing in the middle of a desolate forest. The whispers continued, and I could hear the faint cries of others who had fallen victim to this haunted place. I knew I had to find a way out. Running through the dense woods, I stumbled upon an old, dilapidated cabin. Desperation pushed me to enter, hoping to find a way back to the office. Inside, I discovered a dusty journal, the pages filled with accounts of people who had experienced the same eerie phenomenon. According to the journal, the office building was built on an ancient burial ground, cursed by vengeful spirits. The spirits sought revenge on the living for the desecration of their resting place. The only way to break the curse was to find the remains of those buried there and give them a proper burial. Armed with this knowledge, I ventured back into the forest, determined to put the spirits to rest. With each grave I discovered, the whispers grew softer, and the forest began to fade away. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, I found myself back in the office, standing in front of the supply closet. The next day, as I walked through the office, everything seemed normal. The shadows no longer danced at the corners of my vision, and the eerie ambiance had lifted. I couldn't help but wonder if it was all a dream, but the dusty journal sitting on my desk reminded me of the horrors I had faced.